Good day, dear students. This is the video for class 9th, and today we are going to explore about the textures. Texture is one of the 7 elements of art, and it refers to any tactile quality that is smooth, rough, shiny, fuzzy, bumpy, soft, etc. Texture is basically what exists in nature, which is made by the God. That is the leaves, the trees, the soil, sand, rocks, or whatever there. You can find anything which is in nature. So here I have explored 4 textures, and in this part I'm going to tell about the 2 texture, how to draw it and how to start with. The first one is the leaves. This is the bunch of the leaves. So the kind of hatching which is used in it is parallel hatching and somewhat of a little bit shading. So the simple HB pencil is required for this. You don't have to go for the shading pencils. So it's there with you, with the sketchbooks with you. The old one you can use it, and later on we'll just paste it on the new book. Now, how to start? We just start doing the venation, the sketching of the leaf with a very light hand. So sketching, whenever you go for the sketching, it should be done with a lighter hand. The reason being, if there is any error, you can just erase it with the eraser and though no mark is left. If you do with the put very pressure on the pencil, it will definitely leave the mark when you try to erase it. So the leaves here I have used are somewhere it is very broad and big one. Sometimes I am using very small leaves. So like this you have to draw it. Now after sketching the rough sketch, you have to go for the defined lines. Okay? So the first one is like this. Now what I am doing, I am starting to do the venation. For venation, it's very, parallel venation you have to do. So what I am doing, just with a very pointed pencil, I am just doing it. Not very dark and not very light. Don't go for very light venation, because when you end up with the sketching, then it won't be visible. Now, after doing the parallel venation, you just at the edges you have to just make it darker, and when you initially come into the middle, just give a little lighter tone. Don't go for very dark. At the edges it has to be dark, and when you move to the middle, the pressure is to be very light, and then again at the end it has to be dark. Like this you have to do the edges. The venation, when you start with the next venation, it has to be opposite. Like it goes like this. Now the next leaf venation has to be like this. Now we go for the defined outer line. See, at the end it has to be a thick one with a darker tone and a little bit darker in the middle, and like this you have to just complete the whole thing. You can see here I have used the edges at the very fine dark lines and lighter in the middle, and then darker again at the edges. And the venation has to be like something parallel. It has to be parallel at every time. Like this you have to make the bunch of the leaves. Okay, the next one is the basket weave. For the basket weave, it's very easy. Parallel hatching is used basically, and somewhat of contour hatching. So parallel hatching, simple parallel lines, very closely placed parallel lines, but the tone varies. Somewhere it is very light parallel hatching, and sometimes it's very dark. So how I do it? Just start with the dark with the pressure and just leave it. Start with the dark and just leave it. Start with the dark and just leave it. The rest of thing has to be very lightly parallel hatching. Now, for this weaving you have to take care. Some part has to be left as white so as to show the luster or shine of the bamboo. When you must have seen in the mats the bamboo part, it shows a little bit shiny smooth surface. So as to depict that, we have to leave that spaces. For this is called the vertical weaving, and now for the horizontal weaving it has to be little bit curved. Now so as to show the depth of that weaving, we have to do little bit shading, which has to be broader, where the vertical and horizontal line meets. There the point has to be a broader shading, and initially it goes thinner in the middle and then again where it meets, so as to see depict the depthness of the weaving. This is the way. You have to just go for the softer parallel hatching and leave some spaces, that's all. This is the way. One has to be below the weave, the other one is above the weave, like the weaving generally we use for many things. No, for this basket weave we have to go by this only. This is the way you have to complete both the textures. Only one HB pencil is required, and that's all. This is part 2 of textures, and today we'll explore the textures of bark of a tree and rocks. Bark of the tree, the techniques which are used in it are parallel hatchings basically, and in a lighter and darker tone. So we'll do it like this. First of all, we'll just do the sketching. I have done the sketching with a lighter hand, and now we'll go on with the as you can see on the bark of the tree, you can see some circular patterns. These are like this. Now in this we have to move the pencil back and forth so as to give the rough look. All you have to do is to move the your pencil like this. Some lines has to be softer and some has to be a little bit harder, and every time when you are doing it, just move your pencil like this. This kind of thing gives the rough look to the texture of the tree. The outline has to be dark rather, and then you can introduce little bit of lighter tone lines. All should be distorted. Some more rings are there. It's up to you how many you can introduce, actually how many you want to draw. It's not hard and fast. You can go for 2 more or 3 more. It's up to you. So all is parallel venation parallel hatching is used in it. So this is the way you have to complete the whole thing. The one thing you should take care of is that for the rough textures you have to literally move your pencil back and forth. That's all. And you are going to finish it like this only. Don't go for too much of parallel hatching. Extra lines will decrease the look of the sketching. The other one is the pile of the rocks. So pile of the rocks, here you can see the hatching types are two or three kind of hatching is there. One is parallel, the other one is cross hatching. Somewhere you can see cross hatching to show the scratching and all, the distorted look of the stones. And in between the stones there are some darker patches. These are basically the spaces in between the rocks, so we are just showing it with the darker lines. You have to just fill in the gaps with the same pencil. You can also use cross hatching, very closely placed cross hatching you can use for that also, but I would rather go for the darker shading. Now how to draw it? I have made a sketch. Now I'll tell you how to do it. Let's take the stone. Now here some sketches. To show some sketches I have placed the cross hatching, and for some outline has to be darker, and just to show the spaces between the rocks you have to just do the dark shading. That's all. Like in these two rocks there's one space is there, so I'm just filling it with now. For this, long and short lines are required. Do it with lighter hand, and in between you can do the cross hatching. Just as to show some cracks in the rocks, you can just go for a zigzag line and just join at the end. It should be a little bit curved, so just as to show the cracks in the rock. This like this, every rock has to be drawn like this only. This kind of sketching has to be done. Don't go for very long strokes. Very small strokes are required for this. Now this is the way you have to complete the whole thing, and both the textures has to be done with the darker and lighter tones. So I have told you earlier also, all the four texture has to be done on the sheet, but the boxes size should be 4 by 4 inches. So please complete your work. Thank you.